All right, everybody. And I realize it's 5 o'clock, but we have to wait for a quorum. So it's going to be hopefully just only a couple more minutes until we have another member on.
Just for the record, we are expecting Mark and Linda.
Yeah, I
Just
see.
Seth
I
and
see
Ian.
Mark back. He had been on and then he was off, but. All right, so we do have a quorum at this point, so I will start reading our remote script. We are using Zoom for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. The chair can request that members of the public provide their names for purposes of keeping accurate minutes of the meeting. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. Attendees will join in listening mode. They can click the raise their hand button if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised, and all questions should be directed through the chair. So as a preliminary matter, this is Ashley Erisman, Chair of the Conservation Commission. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Beal.
Yes.
Erisman's here. Mike Mazzarelli. Oh, I couldn't hear you that time. Can you say yes again? Okay, you're saying yes, but we can't hear you. So Joe Plandowski.
Here.
Okay, and I think we're waiting on Linda Williams. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Will Delerba.
Present.
Great. Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. We have Paul Santos.
Here.
Jonathan Schuster.
I'm here.
Karen Beatty.
Here.
Rachel Freeman.
Here.
And Amy Cohane.
Here. Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so good afternoon. This open meeting of the Nantucket Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Nantucket Conservation Commission is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. So for meeting business and ground rules, we are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or your computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. On for items with public comment. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged and speak through the chair. And finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Mike, I see you have your hand up. I still can't hear you. And I see we do have Linda Williams on now. Linda, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. So we will open tonight's Conservation Commission meeting. Our first item is a public meeting, public comment on items not currently on the agenda. Mark Beal, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ashley. I just wanted to put on the record that I have watched the YouTube from the last meeting, which I missed the last 1/3, 1/4 of, so I'm up to speed on all that took place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And again, any public comment on items not on our agenda this evening? I do not see any public comment on Zoom or on YouTube. So I will move on and go through tonight's continuances. Under notices of intent, we have Nantucket Boathouse LLC at 2 and 6 Easton Street, continued until May 25th. We have Local Buoy Properties LLC at 15 Loretta Lane, continued until May 25th. We have the trustees of reservations, Cascada Cotu Wildlife Refuge, continued until May 25th. Under amended orders of conditions, we have Stark Point LLC at 16 Easton Street, continued until May 25th. And then under certificates of compliance, we have Third Time Trust at 41A Cliff Road, also continued until May 25th. So we will open tonight's meeting under public hearing, notices of intent. We have Linda Loring Nature Foundation at 90 Eel Point Road, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to request that this also be continued. We received a response from Natural Heritage and they're seeking a little more information. So if we could continue it for 2 weeks so that we can work on getting them the information that they were seeking, please.
Okay, perfect, Art. Thank you. So Linda Loring Nature Foundation at 90 Eel Point Road will continue until May 25th.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to Nantucket Islands Land Bank, Magnolia Avenue and 20 Ocean Avenue. And this is represented by Rachel Freeman.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Freeman and I'm representing the Nantucket Islands Land Bank tonight on a notice of intent application for the replacement of a set of wooden beach stairs and to relocate an existing path or a portion of an existing path onto land bank property. This area is an extension of Magnolia Ave in Sconset. And for a long time, there's been a set of stairs that was not upkept and it's fallen into disrepair and has become increasingly unsafe. This notice of intent is actually working with the Sconset Trust, and they requested that the land bank consider replacing this set of stairs and restoring it. The Sconset Trust is actually funding the stairs and has been integrally involved in the design process and other various parts of the permitting. So I'm here tonight to request that we are allowed to replace these stairs. And the design is similar, although slightly different. At this point, we have 2 platforms on the stairs. At the top, there's a rather, somewhat large platform, which is actually would accommodate anyone who has accessibility issues and could sit and overlook the area. And then about halfway down, there's also a platform that's for people to sit as well. This area, if we go the whole length of the parcels all the way down to the ocean, actually contains land under ocean, coastal beach, coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and a lot of the coastal resource areas. And basically what we're looking at here is that our proposed work area falls within coastal dune, the 50-foot buffer to a coastal dune, the 25-foot buffer to a coastal beach, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. This request also is within natural heritage jurisdiction, and we have not received any communication from them at this time. So we will be asking to continue this evening. And my understanding at this time is that this is a water dependent project, and therefore we're not actually requesting waivers, but there is clearly a net public benefit, and this was requested again by the Sconset Trust. So I am happy to answer any questions from the commission, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike, I see your hand up.
Yes, I don't have a question. I'm sorry. I'm just checking if my audio is approved.
We can hear you now.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize.
No, it's all right. Technical difficulties are out of our control for the most part. So any, again, questions or comments from commissioners about the land bank project at Magnolia and Ocean Ave? It's like no. So we'll open this one up for public comment. It does not appear that we have any public comment on YouTube. So Rachel, would you like to continue until the May 25th meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we will continue this until May 25th, and hopefully Heritage will get their act together for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that moves us on to Nantucket Conservation Foundation at West Hummock Pond Road. And I know we have Jonathan Schuster and Karen Beatty on.
Good evening. Hello. Will, should I share my screen, or are you going to be sharing the figures?
Either way, if you'd like to share the screen yourself, you can go ahead.
I can go ahead and share my screen if that's all right.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you.
And this may pop up with, there we go. All right, Jonathan Schuster with SWCA on behalf of the Conservation Foundation, and Karen Beatty is on as well. So we have two filings this evening. First, we're starting off with West Hummock or Clark Cove. So this is a Phragmites treatment scope. This is very similar to previous scopes that have been reviewed and approved by the commission on multiple places throughout the island, including Hummock Pond. There is a MISA review that's still in progress, so we are awaiting that. So we will likely have to continue, but figure we can, share the details and answer questions. So at West Hummock, we're dealing with, here we go, done. So we're dealing with a few different resource areas where we anticipate treating Phragmites stands. We got BVW, bank, land underwater, bordering land subject to flooding. There is some coastal dune and land subject to coastal storm flowage south of the site here where my cursor is. And the approach we're taking is a GIS-based one. So the figure you see in front of you represents DEP layers from MassGIS as our kind of estimated resource area bounds. And then the red areas you're seeing are estimated Phragmites stands. And these were developed using AI and satellite imagery. In this case, it was truthed by a human afterwards. So we were, checking our data and running that through SWCA's technology team, and then bouncing that with what we know to be true from the field. And so we've come up, it's about 1.46 acres is all these red areas here. You will note that they're largely or entirely in the northern portion of West Hummock. We also have identified a treatment area stretching northward, kind of along this drainage here where there's BVW. The main reason why it's located in the north is that there was a previous scope for the south of this site where the Conservation Foundation has been managing Phragmites in the past. We wanted to include the entire site just to be holistic about it. And one of the main drivers of this project is that we want to keep the southern portion of Clark Cove free of Phragmites. And there's a fear and I believe observation as well that, little pockets might or have cropped up in the south that will need retreatment because there's such heavy stands in the north. So we are requesting, as we said in the application, a 5-year permit. I know that sometimes is not always granted by the commission, but we'll defer to you on that. Of course, we believe just having that, a little bit of extra buffer would be valuable to allow flexibility. We're also asking for the provision for ongoing spot treatment. I believe a condition like that has been included in previous successful permitting efforts to control Phragmites. And that, of course, would be in consultation with the commission and the commission staff and reporting and all that. So the methods that we plan on using is basically a John boat and Marshmaster to treat these stands. And we're requesting 2 different herbicides potentially that we would want to use just to allow some flexibility. That's ClearCast and AquaPro, which is glyphosate. So it's a very tried and true method that's been used elsewhere on the island. So in essence, this will be very similar to the next one too, but again, we took that estimated approach in consultation with your staff. And at this point, I'll be happy to open it up to questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Could you stop the screen share? Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for Jonathan or Karen. I'm certainly all in support of the invasive removal of Phragmites. I'm just wondering, from a timing standpoint, what's your best option to go after Phragmites?
Jonathan,
As far as the growing season goes. Thank you.
Sure. So I think we provided a bit of information on that in the narrative. I think it would be late in the summer, if I recall. Our ecological restoration team, is experienced in that and consulting on this project. I can double check the timing, but Karen, if you have something to add there, I believe we'd be timing it with, for very similar to past protocols. About I think August, if I recall, but let me double check here in what we had proposed.
Yeah, if I could just add to that through you, Ashley. I think what's been found in past management on Nantucket and elsewhere is that it's most effective if you allow the plant to put all of its energy into producing growth, and then you hit it with the herbicide before it has a chance to go senescent and bring the reserves back into the roots for next year, from photosynthesis over the growing season.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Linda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just excited about this, frankly. I remember when the ponds didn't have all this stuff in it when I was a kid, but we've got some pretty good headway in Hummock Pond. This is really good. I mean, is there a plan to go after my Comet Pond or some of the other ones?
I can't answer that because NCF does not own any of the shoreline on Hummock Pond. I mean, on my Comet Pond. So,
Right.
The pond shore owners would have to bring forward a proposal such as that. But I know that are plans for doing additional, I believe, dredge work in process through the town of Nantucket for my Comet. So it's not being ignored. It's just being done under a different umbrella.
Great, thank you. I'd just love to see the ponds go back to where they were when I was a kid.
Yes. And Rachel Freeman, can you speak to that?
I can. Thank you, Ashley. My Comet Pond has been treated for Phragmites. There's not as much Phragmites around my Comet Pond as some of the other ponds. And we have done that for the past 2 years. We're also actively working on removing purple loosestrife around the edges, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I know another area I'm curious about is kind of your bridge, Rachel, on Hummock Pond, where it crosses like the Gardner Trail. the fiber,
Yes,
like the Phragmites is just creeping and creeping and creeping, but different place. So
that was included last year, though, I believe, as a first strike. We will see where that goes this year. We're following up with that this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I know I'm as well excited to see these invasives get removed. It doesn't look like we have any other commissioners' comments, so we'll open this one up to the public on Nantucket Conservation Foundation at West Hummock Pond Road. I do not see any other public comment at this point. So Jonathan and Karen, do you guys have heritage letters at this point?
We do not. We're still awaiting that. We've had a little bit of communication and we anticipate it soon, but fortunately the timing didn't quite line up. And one thing I did neglect to add is that the land bank is also an owner here. So we have NCF parcels and land bank parcels involved here.
Thank you. So if we don't have heritage sign off, and it doesn't seem like there's any more comments, would you like to continue for 2 weeks until May 25th?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. So West Hummock Pond Road will continue until May 25th. And that moves us on to Nantucket Conservation Foundation at Capom Pond, also represented by Jonathan Schuster and Karen Beatty.
Thank you. I will share my screen again. And Jonathan Schuster with SWCA for the record. Here we go. So a very similar scope to what I just outlined. If need be, I can repeat myself a bit for the record, or I'll try to keep it a little bit more brief. In essence, here, let me scroll down. A very similar method. I think actually in the case of Capom, we still have the DEP estimated wetland features here. And we have BBW, bank, land underwater, BLSF, and we have land subject to coastal storm flowage actually in some of the treatment area on this one, as well as rare species habitat. And if I neglected to mention it before, if you go into the narrative, it'll have a breakdown of the estimated treatment polygons in each one of those resource areas. And again, the Phragmites stands, it's estimated in this case, it was using, I believe some drone imagery was used here to calculate that, along with a little bit of artificial intelligence and then human truthing after to make sure that what it was calculating was correct. We have a bit more Phragmites here. 4.01 acres is the red Phragmites polygon. There are two owners. We have a tiny, there's the Nantucket Conservation Foundation, which owns the majority of the bank. And then up here in the northwest corner, there's an owner at 3R East Tristram Ave. So in essence, very similar, the same methodology, the same two, so ClearCast and AquaPro with Marshmaster and or John Boat to access the pond and treat stands. I'll say that it's a single nozzle that's used that's adjustable. So, you know, if there's large stands, it can be efficiently and effectively treated. And then if there's smaller stands with nice native vegetation, that can be spared because it's again, a very targeted method, but also an efficient method. And again, a lot of similar details from before. So I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. And you can stop the screen share whenever you get a chance. Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So we'll open up Nantucket Conservation Foundation at Capom Pond for public comment. I'm a little slow at toggling screens. It does not appear that we have any public comment at this point. Are we in the same position with this one for Heritage?
We are, yes, awaiting a decision letter. And I'll add one more thing is that, again, with this permit application, we're requesting a 5-year order of conditions and ongoing conditions for spot treatment, similar to the last scope.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I might request, Will, can you just look into that? Because I know normally our permits are 3 years and then they require extension. So I just want to make sure we'd be able to issue a permit for that long, but I totally understand the reason for that request.
Thank you. And of course, we'll defer to the commission. You guys are the experts there. So.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So again, if there's no comments or questions, we will continue Nantucket Conservation Foundation at Capon Pond until May 25th.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that moves us on to amended orders of conditions. We have Daughtry Ack LLC at 2 Mariner Way, and this is represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors regarding the applicant and owner's filing of an amended order of condition, the applicant being Doherty ACK LLC. This application was before you last meeting. To briefly give a description of the amendment request, this site.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, I just have to say I'm recused and you're down to 4 members present, I believe.
Yes, we are. Thank you for that reminder, Linda.
Okay. The request was previously issued an order of conditions for the construction of a single-family home, a garage, a pervious driveway, and some subsurface drainage infrastructure on the particular property. Within this request, we are looking to reallocate the building footprint. Essentially, what was approved previously was 1,700 square feet. The proposal before you tonight is also 1,700 square feet. We have eliminated the amount of structure on the property from the original order of conditions by approximately 272 square feet. And we have eliminated an approximately 200 square foot garage that was proposed on the original application. The reason I think we're back here tonight specifically was with regard to the applicant has added a pool component to the request. This is a 12-foot 6-inch by 7-foot 6-inch pool that is shown and had previously been shown as set into the existing deck. The previous submittal showed the pool extending from the deck to the existing ground. And there was some discussion with regard to meeting the performance standard with regard to land subject to coastal storm flowage of obstructing or inhibiting the land's ability to absorb floodwaters. The resource area we're talking about here today is strictly land subject to coastal storm flowage. That is the resource area, and that is the purpose of the original notice of intent, and that is the reason why we're back here today for the amendment. The plan that you see before you is a modification to what was previously submitted. Again, the pool size is shown. The length is 12-foot 6. You do not see the 7-foot 6-inch width dimension of this. It is approximately 4 feet in depth. Within this proposal, what we're proposing to do is elevate the pool itself 12 inches off of the existing ground and then have it be slightly elevated above the floor or the decking of the existing deck. So in effect, what we've done is created a situation where the pool bottom does not touch the ground and thereby still, as it would for the foundation system when we incorporate flood vents, has an area for floodwaters to pass freely underneath the existing proposed pool. The pool itself is intended to be a saltwater treatment system. It will have an auto cover on the pool. And from just to kind of go through having had a pool myself for a number of years, I do not have one with an auto cover, but typically pools, once the pool is filled, it's typically not drained. They will drain a pool slightly in the fall months to winterize it. In that case, there is water that would be discharged from the pool to lower the level just below the skimmer or filter elevation for the purposes of winterization. The auto cover, from what I've been told, and I've made a few calls to some of the local pool companies, the auto cover itself gives you the ability to, when you close or cover the pool, the auto cover is essentially an impervious barrier. It's not like a winter cover, whereas any rainfall that would hit would simply go into and stay in the pool. The auto cover itself is typically, when it closes, if you were potentially to get a rainstorm, it would stay, any rainfall would stay on the top of the cover. And then typically what they would do is there's a portable pump that goes on, and they could discharge any rainfall from the top of the cover and then open the pool cover back up. So again, in the fall months, the pool would not be discharged. We would expect that your standard conditions that you've issued for in-ground pools, which are limiting the time of year when chemicals can be placed. If in fact the pool does have to be, any pool water has to be discharged from the pool itself, it's done into a pumper or a truck, and it's not discharged directly onto the surface of the ground. And those would, I'm assuming, would be your standard conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. The detail that you see before you basically sets forth the ground elevation at approximate elevation 5. Bottom of the pool would be approximately 6. It would be supported on a helical pile system. A flood zone in this area is elevation 8. First floor of the structure, based on the 9th edition of the building code, would have to be at elevation 9. And essentially the top of the pool would be at elevation 10. So it would be elevated above the deck in almost a bench format or a wraparound around the plunge pool itself. Again, I think the reason we're back here tonight was specifically to discuss the pool. I know there's been a number of abutters who have submitted letters both for the prior meeting and subsequently after seeing the detail that you see before you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. With regard to the initial order of conditions and what you see before you tonight, this is still a request for a single family home, pervious driveway, subsurface drainage system, concrete foundation with appropriate flood vents that you would normally see within the flood zone. Elimination of the garage, but again, addition of the pool. Sense of size, the original garage was approximately 200 square feet. The pool we're talking about tonight is approximately 95 square feet on the basically footprint area. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? All right, it looks, Joe?
Yes, question I have, Mr. Santos, is why is it called a pool? And I say that for this reason. I did some research on pools, and the minimum size to be called a pool is 400 to 600 square feet. And to put that also in perspective, I looked up what a standard pool is for most households. It holds 12 to 13,000 gallons of water. We're looking at I don't want to call it a pool. We're looking at a device of some sort that holds less than 3,000 gallons. The pool just, to me, seems like a misnomer. It looks more like a spa or a hot tub or something of that order.
Paul, do you have a response?
Well, I mean, I think it was shown on the plans for the HDC as a pool. I believe, Joe, under the definition of pool under the local zoning code, I think it may rise to above being a spa. Again, where it was shown on the HDC plans as a pool, and it's been referenced previously as a pool, that's what we carried forward. And I understand what you're saying, essentially 12.6 by 7.6. But I don't have the zoning code in front of me. But I believe it does rise to the definition of a pool potentially under the zoning code.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mark, did I see your hand go up? No. Okay. So if there's no other commissioners' comments, we'll open it up for public comment. I do want to remind individuals with public comment, please state your name and any abutting address if you are an abutter. And please try not to be repetitive to things we've already heard. So first I see RJ Turcott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. RJ Turcott on behalf of the Nantucket Land Council. We believe that this is a good example of what land subject to coastal storm flowage, that part of the regulations was designed for. Regardless of whether this pool is raised and is no longer interfering with the site's ability to absorb stormwater, it's at such a low elevation and so near to the harbor geographically, and in an area that has flooding issues as it is, that if a significant storm surge were to come through, this thing would likely be damaged, which is the fourth part of land subject to coastal storm flowage. And the commission has good reason to deny a pool in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Amy?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Amy Cohane, and my husband and I are one of the 9 abutting properties that are opposed to the pool. While the revisions address, as RJ said, the issue of ground displacement, it does not alleviate our concerns about likely flooding to the area from overflow, or potential leaks. If you Google actually above ground pool, the first thing that popped up for me was, quote, "The danger of leaking is one of the major drawbacks of an above ground pool. Because pool liners are often composed of vinyl, they can easily be pierced by sharp items or worn down by chemicals," end of quote. This area is in a flood zone. We all know that. All of the neighbors in our coalition have indicated major flooding already. I included a picture of mine. Jill Cobb included a picture of hers. Ashley Lenahan has included a picture of hers. We believe the risk of a pool overflow and or leakage should really be taken seriously because there's no margin for error. Another and more potentially more important concern is the pool discharge. And I appreciate Mr. Santos saying that they didn't expect discharge. Hard to really know who's going to comply. I mean, we're living next door, and what's going to happen if they don't comply? After much research, it's our understanding that pools are generally drained annually, and it's a common practice to release the pool water into the owner's yard. Our caretaker looks after 25 pools around Nantucket, and he says this is completely normal. While there are various assertions that chemicals are remediated with regular water and salt water, we believe that compliance is spotty at best. And so based on all these calculations, it's over 2,600 gallons of water with chemicals that could potentially be released into the area annually. This is a risk we can't take given flood concerns, as well as our concern that chemicals would contaminate the precious ecosystem of the property. And finally, as we've said, we know that this plan at 2 Mariner Way, if it were to be improved, it would set a dangerous precedent for pools at 4 and 6 Mariner. This would only exacerbate the real and present risks to our neighborhood. As RJ said, the town's own coastal resiliency plan is to reestablish a resilient landscape all along Washington Street Harbor. Adding pools to this already ambitious plan of 3 houses for this area does not seem in the spirit of the coastal resiliency plan. We urge you to reject this plan and protect this beloved neighborhood. And I thank you very much for letting me share our concerns.
Thank you. Ashley Lenahan, I see your hand up.
Just to publicly support the comments that have been made by Amy and the Nantucket Land Council.
Sorry, state your name and address.
Sorry, Ashley Lenahan, 82 Union Street. I'm an abutter as well, and wanted to publicly support the comments made by Amy Cohane and by the Nantucket Land Council. And additional concern, I think that the land council brought this up, but that even if above ground, 1 foot above the existing grading in that particular floodplain will not actually make that much of a difference to the issue with the flow of water going underneath that pool will still provide a significant obstruction. We know that that area does flood more than a foot fairly regularly. We've all seen it, unfortunately, on our properties. So the concern about the pool liner cracking or being hit is actually quite a large one for us. So thank you. Thank you for looking at this issue.
Thank you. I see is that Jay Hardig.
Yep. Hi. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Amy Cohen's husband. I just want to reiterate it. So as the direct neighbor at 76 Union, we have, the site today is unable to sustain water drainage. If you go there today, you will see a backyard underwater. We have $10,000 worth of remediation going on today, not last week, today, to take water out of the crawl space. It is a flood zone, and further a pool, anything that's taking up the ground's ability to absorb water is a net negative to the, we don't know how, when the homes are built, who's going to respond if and when our house is further underwater, but adding a pool is going to further exacerbate the problem. A, B, it's going to release chemical contamination is real. It's going to happen. That impacts negatively the environment, the ecosystem of the creeks area. That's why we're there. That's what we're here to protect. So I strongly object to the to any kind of a permit of a pool area. And as Amy would say, I would think it sets a negative precedent to 2 Mariner Way or 4 Mariner Way or 6 Mariner Way rather, because we've already seen the damage at 1 Mariner Way based on what the folks next door to them have on Union Street. So thank you.
Thank you. Paul, I have a question for you because I'm having trouble wrapping my head around just how the helical piers will elevate the pool. Will you have like 4 piers to try and do that? Can you explain that a little bit more to me?
Sure. So the pool itself, and it kind of ties back to some of the comments that were made. This is not an above ground pool with a liner like you would typically think about, a circular pool with a liner that sits above ground. This is a prefabricated unit that comes in a singular piece that would essentially be dropped in place. So there's really no liner. It's basically a sealed unit. What I would envision, Ashley, is basically probably 6 helical piles, 2, 1 at each of the corners, and then 2 at the centers, in which this unit would be dropped on and then supported on those helical piles. More than likely, this would probably be a sealed fiberglass, prefabricated unit that would be dropped on and then filled with the water, the 4-foot elevation and water. So what you see on the detail, you're seeing a section, basically. You see 3 on one side, you then need 3 helical piles with a support, some type of support system on the other side also. Okay. And that would obviously have to be engineered and designed by an engineer to provide proper support, just as the foundation system for the house would be.
Okay. I have to admit, I am a little bit worried about how that support will work and just potential settling of the system in the flood zone, because I know there's been a lot of manipulation and groundwork at this location. So I am nervous about the longevity of that system. So thank you for that explanation. I see F. Stasiawoski. I'm sorry, I know that I butchered that. I apologize. And you're muted.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Frank Stasiowski. I'm a licensed architect, fellow of the American Institute of Architects. I was on the original design team of the downtown for Walter Beinecke back in the 60s and 70s, when this entire neighborhood was contemplated. Well, most of the standards were put in place, absent things like your commission, because they didn't exist back then. I'm going to make a couple of comments. First comment I would say is that structurally, if there happens to be a 3-foot surge of water, that pool will float. If it floats, we have to think about the structure and what will happen to it. As a licensed boat captain, I can also tell you that a boat that's 3/4 full of water will still float and move. Okay, it will move, especially if there's a nor'easter and there's waves and wind occurring. So you've got a potential that really, whether you call it a pool or a hot tub, it's a floating object in a storm surge. It's a floating object. That's number one. Number two, as a couple of other people have said, there's a danger of spillage. You're going to be dependent upon future owners who don't have the benefit of this meeting to follow the procedures for emptying the pool and not putting chemicals in and not doing anything out of the normal to sustain what the proposer is asking for. We don't know who those future owners might be. 2 years from now, it could be anybody filling the pool with a different chemical, getting rid of the salt water and replacing it with a non-salt water system. You just really cannot control the next 5 to 10 years worth of owners who could do something totally different than what was intended for that structure to be. Finally, and it's really not a purview of the commission and the commission's mission, but when we look at the character of our downtown, the last thing we would want to do is set a precedent for this that would allow it to be done by developers all over town. So I think, the mission, I think one of the letters that I read was that the mission of the commission is really to preserve and protect the interests of the wetlands and other things in and around Nantucket. It's not to promote development of pools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Faria Khan.
Hi, this is Michael Carey. Thank you, Madam Commissioner. We're residents at 1 Mariner Way, and I want to reiterate everything that's already been said. I don't want to repeat those comments, but one tiny addition would be the precedent that it would set particularly for number 4 and number 6, in the sense that those pools could be significantly bigger once this one is accepted. So I think once you go down that route, then you're creating potentially other bigger problems. That's all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Jill Cobbs.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. I'm Jill Cobbs, 72 Union Street. I agree with all the comments already mentioned. I have 2 questions. The first is, how deep will those piles go into the ground?
Do you want to ask both, and then maybe Paul can answer at once?
So that's the first question. And because I have a concern, which I'll mention in a second. And then my second one is just, maybe it's been mentioned, but all these pool regulations, who enforces? Is there a Nantucket group that enforces the pool regulations of draining the chemicals before in the fall and making sure the pool water is moved away? I mean, I've heard and I've seen them drained into the yards. And if there are these regulations, is there a governing group of people who enforce them? But my first question
is the pilings. So Paul, maybe I can take the pool question. So the pools are regulated, some by the Natural Resource Office if they are within wetlands jurisdiction. So this one would have oversight by, again, the Natural Resource Office, and then as well the Board of Health regulates pool discharges. So I assure you that, I shouldn't say assure you because people do things illegally sometimes, but in wetlands jurisdiction, there is no pool discharge allowed. So we would condition this so that all water would be trucked off site. In this case, we also require pool companies to be on record so that we know the current pool company, and they have to report, the last chemical treatment and any drawdown of the pool, et cetera, to the Natural Resource Office. So we do have oversight when it's within wetlands. And Paul, I don't know if you want to answer the depth of the piling question.
Sure. To answer the question, I do not have that information with me right now. It would be similar. The foundation design is actually, I believe, for the dwellings has been completed, and the geotechnical engineer that's providing guidance on the pile depths for the existing dwelling obviously would be consulted for this component. I'm happy to get that information, and I'm assuming, Ashley, have all the abutters had a chance to speak? Because I think, quite honestly, what I think I'll do is we have a short board. I'd just like to answer a few questions. Obviously, the one that's out there is the depth of the helicals. With regard to this floating, again, this is, as is the foundation system, this is helical piles are driven in the ground. They are then, it's basically an anchor that is holding the system, the pool in place as it does the foundation. We are not in a velocity zone in this particular area. This is an AE zone, so we're not subject to wave action with regard to the design of the foundation system or the particular pool. We're in an AE zone, not a velocity zone. If it was in a velocity zone, obviously some of the comments that were made with regard to potential damage would be applicable. I don't think they're applicable when we're in an AE zone. Actually, I think you answered the question about who can, your board or this board has the ability to issue a set of order of conditions. Those orders of conditions are recorded, and it's basically essentially a encumbrance on the land. So when somebody buys or purchases the property, that order of conditions, along with the conditions that this board and the Board of Health can oversee, are basically part of the record title for the property. Again, I've had a pool for a number of years. I've never drained the pool in the off season. It's basically been, and I don't know how many people are saying on island pools are getting drained, but again, once the pool has water in it, the only type of draining typically you may need is maintenance draining after a significant rainstorm, and it would be significant. And I think the pool cover, the auto cover with the pump is kind of a way to handle that. I've never dealt with that personally, but that's what I'm told that the ability the auto cover does. And again, at the end of the year, the water level typically is dropped, it's winterized, but it's typically not drained. Again, this is not a liner pool, it's a fiberglass setup. So if all the abutters have had a chance, I think actually what I think I'd like to do is, I don't want to separate the application at this particular time. I think the amended with regard to the building footprint and the decking, I'm not hearing really any issues really with that. I think we're really discussing the pool, and rather than trying to marry the two together, I'd like to at least get to a point where we can maybe have a consensus on the pool itself before we close the hearing. So I think, Ashley, that's up to you. If anyone else has any more input, we're happy to hear it, but we'd like to perhaps continue this until the next meeting.
Okay.
And at that point, we probably I can get some more information on the depth of the piles, and any other questions that have been raised. I think we've answered most of the questions with regard to the pool itself, but I'm happy again to come before when you have a full board also.
All right, thank you, Paul. It does look like we still have a few hands up from the public before we would continue, but I appreciate you, having this in front of a full commission. Jill Cobbs, do you have a follow-up?
So I do. I just have a comment that there is a water pipe, a DPW water pipe that flows through to Mariner Way, and that's why I don't know how deep the water pipe is. It goes eventually to my yard. That's why I wanted to know about the pilings, and are they aware of that? So anyway,
Okay, well,
thank you.
Thank you. And we'll make sure maybe Paul, if that pipe could be on the plan, if it's going to interact with the foundation, that would be great.
Yeah, the pipe is on the, it is on the plan, actually. Actually, the pipe carries with it a DPW easement too. So we've stayed, that's
Okay.
actually why the house is where it is. We've stayed clear of that. It's over by the driveway of where the driveway area. It actually comes from the abutting property through the Mariner Way property, and then I believe either 3 or 5, one of the homes that were built, it cuts across that property and then heads over to the duck pond. I've actually given information to Will on that because I know one of the neighbors had some concerns, and I believe, so I provided background information that we had on that drain pipe. And I provided that after the last meeting to Will. So, because I know he was going to reach out to some of the owners with regard to that pipe and the DPW.
Thank you, Paul. Brian Rawson, I see your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Brian Rawson and Meg Rawson of 3 Mariner Way. Sorry, I logged on a little bit late. I had objected to this meeting being heard due to a lack of proper notice under 136D. I received a text that this was going forward, so I'm calling in. I feel like a lot of the things that I was going to address pre-meeting have been addressed at this point, including the role of this committee not being a committee to advocate or assist or guide applicants through this process, especially when one of the commissioners is actually, I believe, retained to guide through this process. I don't think I need to address that.
No, that commissioner has recused themselves. So
great.
I have recused
You mean
myself.
Yep.
like resigned from the whole commission, or
No,
is it
No,
every other
not on
meeting?
this
she's
case.
she's
Oh.
not sitting on this.
I'm
So
getting a little distressed that you would impugn my character. I've recused
I
right at
don't
the
know who you
beginning. I've
are.
recused all along.
okay. So I'm gonna try and stop
you.
the back and forth.
Thank you. I
And
think
we are
recusal means she
ultimately gonna
can't talk.
Yeah, we're ultimately going to continue this matter until next meeting. It
Right.
sounds.
And
Go ahead.
thank you. And so then I heard, I think Paul or whoever the advocate is for this talk about the fact that you would only have to worry about it in certain situations when it floods. If we are going to continue this, I will not address the fact that we're talking about flooding in Nantucket Island, which happens monthly. So I will address that, I guess, in a month from now or whenever we meet again. Also, I think someone else talked about the fact that, I feel like everybody's talking about, are we putting this on stilts? Are we putting this on blocks? What are we doing? I think everyone's missing the point that if there is a flood or if someone drains or if whatever happens, you're going to have chemicals and chlorine going into the wetlands, into the goose pond, or into the harbor. That needs to be addressed, not whether or not, wait, hold on, are we putting this on stilts or on blocks? How's this going to work? And so, I think that needs to be addressed. And then lastly, I would say that I think this meeting needs to be in person because I believe that the Massachusetts governor lifted the COVID emergency order today. And so I'm looking forward to being there in person in 2 weeks or 4 weeks and having, a true hearing about this issue if we're going to keep going forward with this. I mean, if we're going to keep talking about how it didn't flood in Nantucket and about how, oh no, we're putting on blocks or it's going to float or it's no bigger than a septic tank, then, I guess we need to have a meeting. But if we want to keep going forward with this, we can. All this subject to my original objection that this is an improper noticed meeting. But if we need to go forward with it in 2 weeks or today, let's do it. But, this seems silly that we're still talking about swimming pools versus protecting the wetlands, the goose pond, and the harbor, which, by the way, does anybody know how much a fine is? I think it's $300.
Okay.
I think it's $300 if you end up draining into any of those wetlands based on my reading. And so all that needs to be taken into consideration. So if we want to do this, let's do this, but let's do it in 2 weeks in person. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rawson. We are allowed to meet virtually via Zoom as per the governor's order. So I have a whole remote script that I read at the beginning of this. And we will be on Zoom at our next meeting in 2 weeks as well. This meeting was noticed properly, with Massachusetts open meeting law in mind. And the commission works very hard to weigh our wetlands resource areas and the performance standards in each resource area while allowing applicants to make their proposals. And we do compromise with applicants as long as they are within the Wetlands Protection Act, and that's what we're doing here. And that's why there's a back and forth, and these conversations are taking place. But I assure you, commissioners are taking all of your comments into thought, and we will continue thinking about it until this is ultimately closed. Ashley Lenahan, I see your hand up.
Hi, Ashley Lenahan, 82 Union Street. I want to return to the wetlands issue and ask some questions of Paul for next time. I know that there's been a comment of, oh, it's just maintenance draining. As somebody who owns a pool elsewhere, maintenance draining usually means draining half of the pool for the winter and then putting a cover over it. If it is a 3,000 gallon pool, that is 1,500 gallons that will be drained. Probably, having again known other people on the island, it is usually drained into the backyard, and that will go to all of our homes. But much more concerningly, for me, is the goose pond, because I don't want to have to explain to my child why the ducks are in trouble. And I think that is something that we all need to remember, that resource is not just for the community, but it is for the whole island. And it is beloved of every single child on that island. So saving these particular wetlands, just like every other wetlands on the island, is very important, but it is really needs to be put some thought into the possibility of when things go wrong, what that means. For this historic district, but also for the community as a whole on the island, not just our neighborhood. And also, again, to go back to what Mr. Stasiowski said, I too am concerned, again, as somebody who, has a boat, knows how to sail, things do float and they move. And pilings, even things that are on pilings, if there is enough flooding in that neighborhood, which we know it has the capacity for, it can still move, and it is much more easily pushed than a structure that is attached to a base like a house. So that is something to consider as well. And fiberglass, whether vinyl or fiberglass also cracks under heavy pressure. And if we're looking at 3 feet of flooding and this is 1 foot off the ground, then that is actually a real concern as well. So just wanted to add that, and again, to thank you for the commission for their consideration of this.
Yes, thank you. And I realize the proximity of Goose Pond is very close. It is, unfortunately, this property and project is outside of our buffer zone to Goose Pond. So, we legally cannot look at that, resource area as far as the performance standards. Yes, Ashley.
I just say one thing about that, though. When Mariner Way was being built, things were pumped out of that into Goose Pond. So I saw that myself.
No,
well, it was. So, I'm sure fines were paid. I'm sure things were done, but it might be technically outside of the buffer zone. But I think given the way that the flow of water happens in that neighborhood, and if you look at when the corner floods, it does go into Goose Pond. So I think it needs to be considered, even though it might technically be outside of the buffer zone. And sorry, just respectfully, I'm not trying to fight you. I understand the commissions, but just to keep it in mind.
Yes, no, I mean, we keep it in mind and direction of flow and things like that. But, legally, we can only look at the resource area boundaries that interact, and that's land subject to coastal storm flowage at this site. Amy Cohane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just confused about what's going to happen now, because I believe I heard Mr. Santos say, can we vote on the pool and then I'll get the answers? Maybe I misunderstood, but I just got so nervous about that concept. I wanted to say, it feels to me like there's so many unanswered questions. I am hoping that it wouldn't be like one of those, oh, it's okay with the, once we answer these questions. So I just was raising a hand out of that concern. Thank you.
Thank you. So sometimes project applicants request kind of like a straw poll to see where the commission is in thought process. This would not be an official vote for the project. It is my understanding that Paul Santos intends to continue until the next meeting when we have a full commission. So essentially, we would open this up again. It would not be closing. We wouldn't be making any decisions this evening. Paula Kessler.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Paula Kessler. I live at 115 Washington Street, Cottage A. I look right over the Mariner Way and the duck pond. And I'm new to these meetings, but I'll just say this. We bought the property because it was on the beautiful wetlands, the salt marsh, and this beautiful island. And I'm completely against this. I'm devastated that we would have this conversation and put this land at risk because of a pool. So I agree with many of the comments today, if not all, and I'm completely opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Rawson.
Yes, Brian Rawson, 3 Mariner Way. Question about how drainage into the Goose Pond is not under the jurisdiction or the concern of this committee, I guess, what I just heard.
So when we look at an application, we have to look at the resource areas and resource area buffers that actually interact with that project. Goose Ponds itself and its 100-foot buffer does not interact with this project. We obviously do think about drainage in a situation like this. We would require that all of the pool water, anytime it's drawn down, it be trucked off site. So I realize that on other properties, people have seen pools drained into lawns and yards. There would be no pool drainage allowed on this site. It would all have to go into a truck per our orders. I realize that we worry that people will break the rules. Obviously, that's a concern, but we can't predict the future in that sort of situation, because then every case we heard, we'd have to look at, well, what if they break this rule or that rule, or that, it doesn't really get us anywhere. So we do have to assume positive intent. And we do hear and understand your concerns, I assure you. But we have to make sure we make our decisions based on the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw.
Thank you for answering my question about 100 feet. So 100 feet from this proposed pool and the other 2 pools, which I know we're not talking about the other 2 pools, are you aware that the town wetland is within 100 feet of this proposed pool?
So according to what's been submitted, we are not within the 100-foot buffer zone to the pond. I don't know, Will, have you been out to confirm that? We're seeing a yes from staff. Yeah. So that is what we're working with. Again, we understand the close proximity to the pond, but we can't regulate something that wouldn't be in our jurisdiction in this case.
Well, I asked before you guys make a final vote on this, that you go out there and make the proper measurements, or have somebody, or charge the person who's actually asking for this to go out and make the proper measurements. Because again, we are not trying to protect the pools. We're trying to protect the wetlands, the Goose Pond, and the harbor. And I can tell you, based on living across the street, that any of the 3 proposed pools, and in the one we're talking about today, it is within 100 feet of the town wetland. Okay, so it is within your jurisdiction. And I know we're going to continue this hearing to the next one, but this is kind of like the last hearing when I heard somebody in this committee tell somebody that we had to help guide the applicant through the process. That's not, that is not true.
So
hold on. I won't interrupt you if you won't interrupt me. And then another thing is, no one has control of the future. I understand that, but the fines are de minimis. And the only way we can ensure that nothing happens with people releasing pool water is right here, right now. And so the committee has this ability, and I think the committee needs to be more about protecting the wetlands, the waterways as charged, as your role, versus protecting pools. Thank you.
Thank you. And I assure you, if you watch more meetings, you would know that I am a champion for wetlands and their buffer zones. But I also know that our role is to work with applicants in a fair way, and that's what we're doing. But again, we appreciate the public participation and comments. We understand that this is a difficult situation and a difficult application to see. Mike Mazzarelli, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Rawson. Mr. Rawson, we don't regulate the fines. That is done by the state and other entities where we can issue a fine, but we don't make the rules. Unfortunately, they are perhaps not adequate, but that's not something we can control. And then also, Paul, I don't know if you wanted to just say a little bit more about how the buffer was determined in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Paul, do you want to take that?
No, I mean, at this point, I'm looking to continue the hearing. I'll happy to answer any more questions that have arisen that weren't brought up on the original meeting. The subdivision was approved previously. I did not do the original subdivision, but the buffer zones were established as part of the original Mariner Way subdivision. This lot is depicted as within land subject to coastal storm flowage, and that's what we've asked for a permit with under. And it's previously been issued an order of conditions for that particular resource area. But again, I'm asking for a continuance. I'm happy to, so I think we're.
No, I think we're just about there. Do we have any kind of procedural questions from the public, Amy?
I wondered, thank you, Madam Chair, if you would be willing, because I appreciate that you say we have to assume good intent of the future buyer of this home. But, you know, given that you guys don't regulate how much it's going to cost and we don't know who's going to buy it, would you be willing to do a quick survey of how many pools just release the water into the pool in spite of, or like how many people pay the $300 fine? Because that way it is relevant that if people don't comply and it's like regular non-compliance, then we're talking about real clear and present danger to the community.
Thank you. I mean, I know of one recent draining of a pool, but again, we're here to hear this particular application, not to paint it in a bad light because people in other areas of the island have done bad things. And I know that is difficult, but you know, that's our role to play here. Mr. Stasiowski, and again, I apologize.
Just call me Frank. Just a procedural question. There have been 2 meetings and all of the objectors have written 2 letters to you. Do we need to write again since this is being continued? But does continuing mean that it's like a brand new meeting again and everybody has to object all over again? Or are our objections continued along with the continuance?
So everything continues with this application. So all of the letters from last meeting go into the record. The letters and comments from this meeting go into that same record. So we'll continue on the same track, you know, accumulating your letters and comments as part of this hearing process.
Okay.
And that continues until we officially close the matter. Will?
I just wanted to chime in real quickly as a person who has reported a decent number of pool drainings. It's typically, like Paul said, it's just below the skimmer or whatever, but people do drain their pools I'm assuming because of all the letters and everything, if this does go forward and this is conditioned in such a way that, we have our normal pool conditions on it, I think you all will be watching very closely, and you all have my contact information at this point. I also just wanted to say that I believe, Brian Rothen, if you have some sort of map or photo or proof showing that that's within 100 feet, feel free to send it in. And that is it.
Thank you, Will. So Jill Cobbs.
So Jill Cobb, 72 Union. Quick question. So this is the second meeting and we're having another meeting. Is it because you don't have a quorum or because we have unanswered questions or both? And how long will this drag out? Any idea, or is there?
So it's the applicant that decides whether or not they would like to close a hearing. Essentially, in some cases, they might not know whether the commission would be favorable for their project or not. So, Paul and the, whoever he's representing can choose to continue until, they feel their project will go through, or they might omit pieces of their project. But my feeling in reading Paul is that he would like to wait till we have a full commission. Right now, we only have 4 sitting, and we could have 6 people weighing their opinions on this. And I think he would like to wait to answer some of the questions that came out this evening and to allow a full commission to sit and have their opinions on this matter. So it does look like Jay Hardig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about last meeting, Seth, forget his last name, a commissioner who's not present this evening, made a very strong statement, a very clarifying statement about does not pass the standards of the Conservation Commission's mission. And he cited a couple of points. It does exacerbate flooding. It doesn't allow for more drainage. Is that on record somewhere? Is there someplace I can go and find what the Conservation Commission's mission is to protect the environment, to protect the wetlands? And I'd like to be able to review that, because these things move us in opposite direction of, I would think, your mission. And what he stated so clearly, I think, for the group was again fact-based. So I appreciated what he said. I know he's not here this evening, but I would love to be able to go find that where that exists in your bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Seth is very articulate, and I always appreciate that about him. I know we have, I believe, a mission statement up on our website. Our bylaw is also posted there. I don't know, Will, if you can maybe email a link to this information. At present, we don't have meeting minutes yet produced from the last meeting, but you can watch the YouTube video. And everything said by commissioners, by the public, anything that's submitted becomes part of this record moving forward.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Mark Beal, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ashley. For the abutters, you have, I think, the trust of the Conservation Commission that we will recognize all of your comments at a later meeting. We'll meet again in 2 weeks, May 25, I believe. And all your comments will carry forward to us all. They won't be forgotten. They're part of the record. And I take them all to heart. And also, just so you know, the commissioners, when they miss a meeting, as I missed a portion of one last time we met, each commissioner is allowed to watch the YouTube and get up to speed on what happened the last meeting, and therefore able to participate in the next meeting. So if the commissioners that missed tonight opt to watch the YouTube of this hearing or the entire meeting, they may act on the motion to go forward from there. So I just thought that might help you at all. But thank you for now.
Thank you, Mark. So At this point, Paul, I'd like to give it over to you to maybe officially request a continuance.
Yes, I would officially request a continuance to Thursday. I believe the 25th would be our next meeting.
Yes, Thursday, May 25th is our next meeting.
And could I just briefly, and I don't want to prolong this any more than I have to, but just, I think I'm fairly comfortable that I can say that this will not go past the 25th for all the abutters. And anything that we submit to supplement what was discussed today, we typically have to file the Friday before the meeting. So anything that we file to supplement what's already on the record would be filed on the 19th. So you'd have a chance to see that before the next meeting. And that's it. I'd ask for the continuance, please.
Thank you, Paul. So we will continue to Mariner Way until May 25th.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, members of the public, for your participation. I know it's not always easy to come before a new board. And again, we appreciate your participation. All right, so that moves us on in the meeting to requests for determination of applicability. We have Lions Foot LLC at 9 Sherburne Way, and we have Art Gasparo on for this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you tonight with a request for determination of applicability to remove structural elements from within the buffer zone to a very stable coastal bank along the North Shore. On the plan in front of you, shown in blue is the top of that bank based upon a break and slope, and in red is the 100-foot buffer zone, and the portions of that structure in that area are going to be removed, and that area just restored to lawn to match the surrounding area. I'd be happy to take questions or concerns that you might have.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
I have to recuse from this one, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Linda. Will, do you have a recommendation here?
Yep, just noting Linda's recusal. This was the fastest, easiest site visit I've ever done. Recommending a -3. The work is in the buffer zone, but will not alter the resource area. They're taking the structure out. It's just over the 100, just a little bit. So.
Thank you, Will. Would somebody like to make the motion to issue a -3? Motion made by Joe, seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
Right, that carries with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. And that moves us on to minor modifications. We have AC 86QR LLC at 86 Quidnet Road. Says Brian Madden for this one, but Will, are you taking it?
Yeah, I'm going to take Brian's. He is en route to Iceland for his 5th anniversary or something nice.
No.
And I'm recused from this one also. This is an old project of mine.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
So this minor mod, is to adopt the proposed landscaping on this already approved project. And it also includes these boardwalks, which are mostly outside of the 100-foot. I believe these boardwalks are part of it here. And then this.
Will, are you intending to pull the plan up for us?
Oh, wow. Yep.
Sorry, I know you were looking at it. I think thinking it was up.
I was showing the plan to myself. So anyway, here it is. So the areas that are outlined in purple are showing where the revegetation is. This is the landscape plan that they're looking to adopt. There's also some proposed cobblestone retaining walls along here. They go into the 100-foot buffer just a little bit. Not letting me select right there. And then there are also some at-grade boardwalks that are proposed just through the garden areas and such. This is actually out of the 100, but portions of it are going over the 100-foot. Nothing's in the 50.
Thank you, Will. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? It's like no. So if not, would somebody like to make the motion to issue the minor mod? Mark, are you making that motion? Is there a second? Seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
All right, that carries with Commissioner Williams recused. And that moves us to Phillips at 19 East Tristram Avenue. And we have Paul Santos on for this.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the property owner, Richard Phillips, who is the trustee of the trust for Richard Phillips. This is a minor modification request for 19 East Tristram Avenue. We've been before you a few times with orders, amended orders, and some minor mods. And to be specific, this is the home that was lost to fire some months back. It is currently being reconstructed. And as part of this minor modification, we're looking to add the location of a well, a hydrant, a storage tank, and a pressure tank, all within the buffer zone, to both a drainage ditch that crosses from the abutting property under East Tristram Avenue. There is a drainage ditch and a small vegetated wetland associated with the ditch. This is being done for insurance purposes. It's providing a water source on the property moving forward. They're not relying strictly on the well water situation that they had for firefighting purposes the last time when the home was lost. So the application is a minor mod to construct basically a 2,000-gallon cistern, basically put that in the ground. It would be constantly fed by a well that would be strictly for firefighting purposes. It wouldn't be a domestic well. The well for the house is completely separate. Would have a hydrant for the fire department, and as water would be drawn out of the tank, it would then be filled up through the constant pressure pump, which would also be installed. So this is a buffer zone filing, essentially to provide firefighting ability, storage of water on the property for firefighting purposes. And that's the extent of the application.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. Will, do we have everything we need to issue the minor mod?
Yes, we do.
Paul, would you like us to issue tonight?
Yes, thank you.
All right, is there a motion to issue?
Motion to issue, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye, and it feels good to approve something tonight. It's the first one.
Does. So that carries unanimously. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, everyone.
So that brings us to certificates of compliance. I know we were waiting on some information reports on these. We have Lenhart first at 25 Dukes Road. I don't see a representative for that project on. Will, have you received any information from them?
Oh, sorry to interrupt you there. I'm gonna say we're gonna continue that one. I had spoken to Chuck Lenhart on Monday, so I'm still waiting for him to submit something. He had said he was gonna be in attendance, but he's not here, so we are gonna continue that.
Perfect. So if there aren't any questions from commissioners, we'll continue Lenhart at 25 Dukes Road until May 25th.
You know, May 25th, Madam Chair, is looking to be a nightmare.
Oh, trust me. I'm registering that.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to think about it yet.
So that moves us to Brody at 11 E Street.
So these are, this one and the next one are from Brian. I can share my screen if you want, but I got all the, I got Brian's monitoring reports. I'll just like breeze through them real quick.
Thank you, Will.
Oh. Yep. So we talked about this property last time, and on my final inspection, everything looked really good, but we were, you know, missing these monitoring reports. But these are the photos, you know, kind of beginning to end in order from each year. And you can see, let me get this last one. It's a small area, but everything's grown in pretty well. This is kind of the last spot. In this last photo, this one doesn't have a label or anything, but you can see this is kind of as it's looking today. It's not quite as grown in yet since it's May, but everything's looking happy.
Thank you, Will. You know, we held this one over for the monitoring reports. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
It's better than it did.
Yes. So if there's no questions or comments, would somebody like to make the motion to issue the cert? Motion made by Mike, seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that brings us to Killian at 10 Mayhew Lane.
All right, I'll remember to share my screen. So same situation. We heard this one last meeting. Brian got me all these photos from the initial planting. They had removed a bunch of blackberry and bittersweet, and then this is their replanting area directly after. You can see it's a dirt pile. Here's the plants in the dormant season. And here's what we're looking at now. This is from 22. And everything's looking like it's establishing and doing pretty well. But we were just waiting on these monitoring reports.
Thank you, Will. I forgot to ask this on the last one, so fail on me. Are any ongoing conditions?
Fail on me too. I have them written down. E Street for the last one.
I don't know that we can go back to that since we closed it. So
I can motion to reopen it, Madam Chair, if that will work. It's at the same meeting.
yeah, I mean, I would accept that. I don't.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to
We'll do that.
reopen East Street before we keep going with Killian.
thank you, Linda.
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, so again, we're now talking about Brody 11 E Street and ongoing conditions, and I apologize for not catching that.
It's been a long week.
Well, thank you for catching it after the fact, because I wrote all these down earlier and that would have been pointless. So this one's just going to be the ongoing condition 19, that all lighting shall be directed downwards and away from the resource area, and efforts made to not have the lighting on when not in use.
Thank you, Will. So would somebody like to make the motion to issue the cert with ongoing condition 19 regarding lighting? Mark, you making that motion? Seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And then again, back to Killian at 10 Mayhew Lane. And we're discussing now the ongoing conditions for this property.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. So the ongoing conditions for this one, we will have 5 of them. Condition 19, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within the jurisdiction of the commission. Condition 20, the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. Condition 21, all chemical treatment shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. Condition 22, all lighting shall be directed downwards and away from the resource area. Condition 23, the applicant shall provide the contact information for the company maintaining the pool. Pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission with a plan showing where the pool shall be drained to. And then I actually have one more on this as well. Condition 29, permanent markers shall be installed to mark the restoration areas as no disturb areas.
Thank you, Will. If there aren't any questions or comments from commissioners, would somebody like to make the motion to issue the cert with ongoing conditions 19 through 23 and condition 29?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
Motion made by
I'll
Linda.
second Joe's.
Okay, I'll give it to Joe then, and second to Linda. By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us to 10 Moore's-End Lane Realty Trust at 10 Moore's-End Lane. And I do see Art Gasparo coming on for this one. So Art, we just, lost him.
Where'd he go?
I don't know. Technology.
Seems like Art is, I'm admitting him again right now, might be having some technical difficulties.
There he is.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I lost my connection.
Okay, out of our control and out of your control.
And it's only the beginning.
So, yes, thank you. This is a certificate of compliance for site work request for site work that occurred on a residential property and I believe was done in substantial compliance with the issued order.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
Do we have any ongoing conditions on this one?
Yep. Will, would you like to give those over to us?
I got him ready to go, Linda. All right.
I'm learning.
Condition 19, the pool shall not be drained. Oh, and I guess I skipped the part where I say this is as it appears on the plan. I've been there. But condition 19, the pool shall not be drained or discharged into an area within the jurisdiction of the commission. Condition 20, the pool shall not be chemically treated between November 1st and May 1st. Condition 21, all chemical treatment shall stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. Condition 22, all lighting shall be directed downwards and away from the resource area. And condition 23, the applicant shall provide the contact information for the company maintaining the pool. Pool company shall provide 48-hour notice of any draining to the commission with a plan showing where the pool shall be drained to. And that's it.
Thank you, Will. If there aren't any questions or comments, would somebody like to make the motion to issue the cert with ongoing conditions 19 through 23? Mike, are you making that motion? Is there
A second.
seconded by Linda? So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye, and we're putting that lighting thing we've talked about in the past on every one of these now, right?
We're trying to, yes.
Okay, because especially after what went on this week at town meeting.
Yes. Very important to keep our night sky beautiful.
Anybody see the Northern Lights last night? I didn't see them.
Nope, I was probably sleeping. All right, so that moves us on to Baines at 16 Tatamo Way, also represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to request that this one be continued for 2 weeks so I can work with staff.
Perfect. So Baines at 16 Tatamo Way will continue until May 25th.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that moves us to orders of conditions. We did not close any of these things this evening, so epic fail on.
Epic fail.
So we'll move on to extension of orders. We have Nantucket Electric Company, Candle Street Substation installation, represented by Melissa Kaplan.
Good evening. Melissa's here representing Nantucket Electric Company. We're just requesting to extend the order of conditions for the work at the Candle Street substation. The work has not started yet due to delays, due to material delays, supply chain delays, COVID, and funding. The work is not planned to start until March 2025. But is planned hopefully to be completed by the time the next extension of the order of conditions would be complete. So nothing else is proposed for change. It's just asking for an extension.
So you're asking for 3 one-year extensions to get this done?
If 3 1 year or 3 years, whichever one you would like to issue, sure.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
No, Madam Chair, what do we normally do? 1 3-year or 3 1 years? How are they normally phrased?
I always thought it was 3 one-year extensions in this case, but maybe I've been saying it wrong all these years.
I actually haven't done an extension in a while because of the tolling provisions, but this one didn't qualify. I thought you could get a 3-year extension, but I could be, I don't know if you know.
I'm pretty sure from the Vineyard Wind one that we recently did that it was worded as a 3-year extension. I'm about 99% sure.
Well, I'll word it however whoever wants to make the motion.
6 in one, half dozen in the other anyway, right?
So it's the same time period ultimately. So would somebody like to make a motion to give Nantucket Electric Company 3 more years, and you can word it as, again,
Any way you want. Second.
which way are you making it?
1 3-year extension, if it was me.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I'll second that.
All right, so by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. And that brings us to Town of Nantucket at 34 Washington Street. It says we have Gibson on for this one, but the only town person I see is you, Will.
You have Delurba. So they are looking for a 3-year extension for the new Harbor Master building that was approved at 34 Washington. For very similar reasons as you just heard, they experienced a whole bunch of unforeseen delays due to COVID,
Funding.
procurement, funding,
Yep.
blah, 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 everything. So they are looking for another extension. They're engaged in engineering processes to reissue the project and stuff. So, but I believe the physical work has not started.
Thank you, Will. Would somebody like to make a motion? Mark?
I just wonder if they'll be back in 3 years for a new warrant article for a lot more money, but I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. Probably so, too. That's how we roll around here.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Yep.
Arisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to other business. We have enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. Will?
I may have to just explain this one because I can't find my picture right now, but I took some pictures today. But it's very easily explainable. I had someone call in about a property in Wawanet. It's 110 Wawanet. They've had an enforcement before for other structures along the coastal bank.
Yep.
Yeah. they had a picket fence, like a pretty standard picket privacy fence that was constructed all the way right to the 50-foot buffer. And then when a neighbor showed up, they noticed that there's a brand new fence going from the 50-foot buffer literally to the edge of the coastal bank. So in the absence of, I was hoping to show you some pictures tonight, but I don't know where they went. But I took pictures of this yesterday, so I can email them out to you guys tomorrow. But I wanted to mention it tonight during our enforcement, so I can draft something up and send it out.
Thank you, Will. Are there any questions for Will about this one?
Yes.
I'm going to
thank you.
recuse. I'm going to recuse from any vote on this one because I have worked for Lydia in the past, but it's been quite a while. I don't want to get involved with it.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Mike, go ahead.
So for enforcement orders, just procedurally, I'm asking the question, we'll send out some pictures. Do we have to wait till the next meeting to officially act on anything like that, or we can?
No, we can act this evening, and that's what I would prefer we do. And then hopefully this individual or a representative can be in front of us at the next meeting to explain what's going on.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. If there aren't any other questions or comments, would somebody like to make a motion to?
I do have one question, if I may,
Yep.
Ashley. What exactly is the enforcement order, the violation, Will?
A picket fence would be a structure going through the 50-foot buffer zone up to the coastal bank. So we have
Gotcha. Thank you.
unpermitted
Yeah.
stuff.
And it's definitely right up to the coastal bank or within like 5 feet, without in the absence of a plan with a delineation, but it's right there where the slope starts, at the edge of the property,
Any other questions or comments? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the enforcement? Motion made by Joe. Is there a second? Seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mizzarelli.
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
All right, that carries with Commissioner Williams recused. Any other enforcement activity, Will?
That is going to be it for now, but we are working on getting a nice list of the backlog of stuff together for that June 1st meeting. So we're going to have like a larger enforcement update for past things at that point.
Thank you, Will. So that moves us on to discussion of council requests for SBPF removal order. At our last meeting, the commission made a motion for me to reach out to Attorney Timon about his representation in the removal order. I did that. Attorney Timon felt that he needed to reconnect with Libby and the select board regarding his ability to continue to represent us. He is willing to represent us, but he felt that we needed that permission. Hopefully everybody saw the correspondence that took place. Ultimately, we're denied that representation at this time, and it was suggested by the town manager that we reach out via the forms process, requesting special counsel once again through her and the select board. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that that's happened. We don't necessarily need to take action tonight. However, we could, again, like start that process request through Libby and the select board again. Or we can, table this for further discussion with more members here. But I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware. So are there any questions or comments? And Mike, I like your dog.
I would think it would be a better discussion when Ian and Seth are here. I don't really want to delay anything, but they'll certainly have a lot to say, so I don't want to exclude them from the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments? Doesn't look so at this time. So Will, maybe we can carry this discussion item to, it might be a marathon meeting on May 25th. For kind of a full commission discussion. So that moves us on to reports. Our CRAC representative is not here. CPC.
No meeting.
Okay. We also don't have our NP and EDC rep. So that moves us on to Harbor Plan.
We're meeting next week and we're making a lot of progress. It's a really good group, very energized.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. And then the Offshore Wind Work Group.
No meeting.
So that moves us on to commissioners' comments. You know, and I just want to state for the record, even though I don't know that the public watches this long, you know, I really appreciate all the time commissioners and staff puts into preparing for these meetings, participating in these meetings, fact checking, because, you know, we really, I don't think get appreciated for the amount of time and effort that we truly put in.
Well, none of the board members put in as much time as you do.
I mean, I think it depends on where you look, you know, everybody's doing something, but sometimes I feel like I do.
I really appreciate it. And I'm, you know, you run again, I spent 4.5 hours at a ZBA meeting today, then came home, plugged my computer back in and got on this meeting. And I'm brain dead at the moment, but still, out of all the meetings I attend, and I'm on everything else, you run the best meeting on this planet. I just have to tell you, it's just stunning to me that how you move it along and what in your organizational skills on this stuff.
Thank you, Linda. And a lot of that credit goes to Will and Lisa in the office for putting it together so well.
Oh, this staff is phenomenal. Let me tell you, it's like, it's good as just as good as the Plus staff, but this is great stuff.
Thank you, Linda. Mark, I saw your hand up.
I do have one question, and I'd be curious to hear Will and Ashley, the merits of an idea I've had. We regularly postpone meetings till the next meeting because they don't have natural heritage. Should that be a check mark they have to have before they walk in the door for signing up for a meeting? Wouldn't that speak? Because now we're going to hear we don't hear them in their entirety the second time, but we hear it again, and that makes our meetings longer.
It's kind of a joint filing normally that they're filing with us and they have to do heritage at the same time.
Oh, okay.
I will say I have wondered that myself, Mark. Not that comment is helpful, but
no, and I think some applicants actually do continue. It really depends on like if they're paying representatives and things like that. But a lot of times they will wait to open until they know that their plan meets with heritage. I have a feeling that's maybe what trustees of the reservation is doing. Yes. So sometimes they don't open right away, but I agree it can drag it out a little bit.
Okay.
Any other commissioners' comments? Not
Nope.
To administrator staff reports.
You know, he looks like he's sitting in a closet, doesn't he?
Who?
He is.
Will.
Who, me?
Or the bathroom.
It's my cubicle.
Just you. I saw the lights go out on you there earlier, but
a couple times. The last few meetings they went out on me many times. But yes, staff comment. I'm going to be emailing everybody a draft. I'll call it a draft because if anybody has any comments or anything, let us know. Of the press release for 2 Gully Road. We'll be emailing that out tomorrow. So I just want to put that on everyone's radar. And other than that, thanks for the nice compliments, Linda. And that's my only other comment this evening. Get ready for a long meeting next meeting. We had a nice short one tonight.
Yeah, great, yeah.
And just a reminder about the Gully Road press release. If you have questions or comments, reply only to Will. Do not reply all. To make edits, and if edits are made, then a new draft will be sent to everybody.
Yes.
And guys, we're under 2 hours. So does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, don't we want to stick around a little longer here?
No.
There's daylight. I saw Joe's hand go up, so he made that motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
think we're gonna need
Comes early
Memorial
tonight.
Day. We're gonna need Memorial Day right after that 25th to recover.
Yeah. And then we come back for June 1st enforcement meeting. So get ready, guys. We're doing it. All right. Have a good
All right.
Thank
See you
you.
later, guys.
Have a great weekend.
You too.